Now, your guest host for Point of View.
Good Monday, everybody. This is Colonel Alan West, the President and CEO of the National Center for Policy Analysis, in here at Point of View Studios, guest hosting as Kirby is over in Hungary. He is teaching a Bible college. Please, our call-in line is 1-800-351-1212. I say again, 1-800-351-1212. The last 30 minutes of the show will be completely dedicated to taking your calls. And also click on pointofview.net. You can click Watch Now, and you can watch us live streaming in your homes. Well, guess what? It's the 1st of February. And if you hadn't been paying attention, there's a little something going on in a state called Iowa, the Hawkeye State. And it's not about the fried hot dogs or corn dogs or fried butter. I don't know how you eat fried butter. I don't know how you cook fried butter. And I'm from down south, and we love fried food, but I don't know if I could try fried butter. But there's a little caucus going on today. And I just want to talk to you, our readers, listeners, rather, real quickly about voting. If you're in Iowa and not registered to vote, it is too late to register online, but you can register in person at the caucus. Today is the deadline to register to vote in the primary in other states. As a matter of fact, a month from now, here in Texas, we'll be having our primary vote. So make sure that you're registered to vote. There are a total of 9 states with deadlines this week. There are 28 states that have a deadline in the next 30 days. 1 in 7 Americans who think they are registered to vote are not registered. Go and check. But for the listeners here at Point of View Radio, understand this. 13 million born-again evangelical Christians did not register to vote in the 2012 election. And as Kirby has been sharing with you, some 26 million evangelical Christians did not vote. And that's a big deal with the population there in Iowa. It is too late to register for the primary in South Carolina. In every other state, there's still time, but many of those deadlines are coming up quickly. If you want to check to be sure you're registered to vote, go to pointofview.net, click on our Pray, Organize, and Vote election resources. There you will find a button that says, "Are you registered?" If you need to register, there is another button to take you to an online registration. You can also find a voter guide for your state. You know, it was Benjamin Franklin who responded to Mrs. Powell back on September 1787 when she asked if we had a republic or a monarchy. Franklin replied, "A republic, if you can keep it." One of the most important ways to keep a republic is to get out and participate in this electoral process, because Plato said one of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is that you will be governed by your inferiors. Well, look, this is what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about the issues that will get us ready for all of these primaries and definitely for this presidential election cycle. My first guest in studio is Pamela Villarreal, who is the National Center for Policy Analysis expert on retirement, economic growth, and tax issues. Villarreal has written studies and analyses on specific economic and retirement topics such as minimum wage effects, the jobs market, returns on stocks and bond investments, retirement account reforms, and the NCPA state tax calculator. She has authored and co-authored numerous publications on diverse topics such as capital gains taxes, reverse mortgages, Social Security, disability, and baby boomers' spending habits. Pam, good to have you in the office. I get to see you, in the studio. I get to see you every day in the office. But
that's right. Well, thank you for having me.
No, it's great because, when you look at what is going on with our economic situation in the United States of America, we really need to inform and educate the citizenry so they make the right type of decisions. And so one of the first things, because you just recently did an analysis through the Beacon Hill Institute about the tax plans of Donald Trump and also Ted Cruz.
That's right. Today, we unveiled our analysis of both the Trump and the Cruz tax plans. I will say that both of them are better than the current system that we have. But I do have to say, when it comes to economic growth, Cruz's plan trumps Trump's plan.
Well, what specifically, when you look at the Trump and the Cruz plan, what were the evaluative criteria that you looked at for each one?
Well, some of the things that we looked at, obviously, we looked at, simplifying the tax brackets. Trump's plan does do that. You would have 3 brackets, 10%, 20%, 25%. We also looked at, do these plans eliminate those pesky taxes that we all hate, like the estate tax, the marriage penalty tax? Both plans do that. And I failed to mention, too, that Cruz's plan would institute a flat tax of just 10%. And then another area we look at is corporate taxes. As you probably already know, the United States has the highest corporate tax rate in the world at up to 35%. But both plans would reform corporate taxes. As a matter of fact, Cruz's plan would reduce the corporate tax rate to a business tax of just 16%, which is great for economic growth.
Now, one of the things we had heard in a previous GOP presidential debate was the accusation that Ted Cruz's tax plan brought in a value-added tax, which is much the same as what you see over in Europe. Is that the case or not?
Actually, it would be similar to that type of tax in that it is taxed on different levels of production. However, when you compare it to the corporate tax we currently have, as I said, of up to 35%, you do find that it's actually a much better tax. It creates more jobs. Cruz's plan, if it was enacted in the year 2017, it would actually create 6 million additional jobs over what we have now. Plus, it increases investment income. It increases personal income, which has been stagnant for many decades. On top of that, you have the 10% flat tax as well.
Now, what does it do as far as capital gains tax, dividends taxes between the two tax plans?
So Trump's plan would essentially eliminate the capital gains tax, and Cruz's plan would reduce the capital gains tax to 10%. And currently, you could pay up to 25% on the capital gains. And, of course, if you have to pay the lovely Medicare surtax on your unearned income, you could pay even more than that. So both plans will be ideal for capital gains.
Now, when you look at the effect on small business growth and development, which, of course, small businesses operate from the personal income tax rate. I mean, the top bracket's now like 35, 38%. And small businesses are 75 to 80% of our economy. Which one of these tax plans, overall does the best? And also charitable contributions, do they deal with charitable contributions?
So both plans would actually eliminate most itemized deductions except for the mortgage deduction and charitable contributions, which are very important to so many people. But when it comes to small businesses, Cruz's plan would probably be the better bet because a small business would pay, perhaps a 10% depending on how they record their business, or possibly 16%. Whereas Trump's plan, you would still be subject to a higher tax of perhaps 25%. So Cruz's plan is a little bit better on that. But of course, as I mentioned before, both plans are a wonderful alternative to what we have, and also probably a much better alternative to what, Hillary and Bernie are proposing on the other side.
Well, when you think about these tax plans, before we go to our first break, very quickly, what is the number one thing that you look at in your assessment of a tax plan?
I think the most important thing to look at in assessing a tax plan is how do we treat capital investment and saving. The problem is with the current plan is that the government rewards consumption, but we tend to penalize saving and capital investment by taxing it to death. So
well,
it's very important we don't do that.
Thanks so much, and we'll be right back here at Point of View Radio.
This is Viewpoints with Kirby Anderson.
Today is the official beginning of the election season with the Iowa caucus. Over the next few months, every state will have either a primary or a caucus, and a few states will have both a primary and a closed caucus. The election this year will most likely determine the future of this country. The next president will appoint 2 to 3 Supreme Court justices and tip the balance of the court one way or the other. The next Congress will consider whether it will continue down the road of profligate spending or return to a foundation of fiscal sanity. Politicians at both the federal level and the state level will consider legislation that will either restrict abortion or allow it to continue and provide taxpayer funding. Much is at stake in this election. As Christians, we need to consider what part we will play in this election. We have a civic responsibility because we're both citizens of heaven and citizens of earth. Good citizenship involves being registered to vote and going out and voting intelligently in every election. Jesus says that believers are the salt of the earth and the light of the world. We have a stewardship responsibility when it comes to using our gifts, talents, and opportunities. Jesus also described the importance of this stewardship in his parable of the talents. He was critical of the one servant who buried his talent. We as voters should not bury our talent, but use the opportunity God has given us to vote responsibly. On my radio program, I've talked about the statistics from the 2012 presidential election. First, there were 13 million born-again Christians who were not registered to vote. Second, there were an additional 26 million who were registered to vote who did not vote. Over the next few months, I encourage you to make sure that people in your sphere of influence are registered to vote and then educate them about the issues and the candidates. This is no time to sit on the sidelines. I'm Kirby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
Take Kirby and the Point of View team with you on the go with the Point of View app. Search for Point of View Radio at the Apple or Google Play stores.
You're listening to Point of View, your listener-supported source for truth.
Welcome back to Point of View Radio. Colonel Alan West, the President and CEO of the National Center for Policy Analysis, guest hosting for Kirby. You can call in 1-800-351-1212 and also go to pointofview.net and click on Watch Now because we are live streaming. We're back with Pamela Villarreal, who is the Senior Fellow at the National Center for Policy Analysis on economic issues and tax policy issues. We just finished talking about a little comparative analysis between the Ted Cruz and Donald Trump tax plans. Let's switch a little bit and let's talk about some of these current fiscal issues. You hear a lot of people talking about living wage. They talk about the $15 minimum wage. I tend to believe that a minimum wage job is not a career pursuit. But what are some of the things that you've uncovered in your research and your analysis about this quote-unquote living minimum wage?
Well, one of the big arguments of having a living wage is that it helps the poor. But what we find out is that really it doesn't do a very good job of doing that because people that tend to earn the minimum wage tend to be in families that have two or more workers. So you may have a young person who still lives with their parents and they're in the top 20% of income earners, and they're earning the minimum wage. Whereas you look at the bottom 20%, and you might have just a few people in that bottom 20% that are actually working at all. So in terms of whether it really helps the poor, there are other programs like the Earned Income Tax Credit that actually does a better job of helping the working poor. The minimum wage is really pretty ineffective at doing that.
You know, when you look at the campaign rhetoric, I love it. You know, everyone, says we're going to give you this, we're going to promise this. And then, of course, if they do get in office, reality hits them like a cold wind. So give us an example of some of the campaign rhetoric that is out there that you think is most troubling for the future of our economy.
Well, I just heard recently, I think it was Bernie Sanders, who was criticizing Walmart. The owners of Walmart have all this money, he said, and he implied that they weren't really deserving of it. But Walmart is actually one of the largest employers in the world now. And without Walmart, there'd be a lot of people in a lot of towns that wouldn't be able to afford some basic goods and services. So there's kind of this divide that, well, if you're wealthy, then somehow you inherited that wealth and you don't deserve it. But people that founded Walmart or Microsoft or any other company, they pretty much started from the ground up. And it seems like that the left has a lot of trouble really understanding that concept that people do work for their wealth, and there's a lot less inherited wealth than there used to be.
You know, it reminds me back in 2012 at Roanoke, Virginia, when the President Barack Obama stood up and said, if you own a business, you didn't build that. I mean, that to me is the most antithetical statement to who we are in America, because when you look at what has, happened here in 239 years, the investment, the innovation, the ingenuity, are we at such a critical tipping point in America where we no longer believe in the individual and their indomitable entrepreneurial and economic spirit?
Exactly. And the important thing to remember is when you have people like Bill Gates that develop software in their garage, and then they start Microsoft, and it becomes a very large employer. They are helping other people by employing them. Microsoft, Walmart, oil companies that we love to hate, big pharmaceuticals we love to hate. So much of the idea of acquiring wealth is the left just doesn't really fully understand it. And so what they advocate is, well, if you're going to flip burgers the rest of your life, we want to give you a living wage of $15 an hour. And of course, we've also found that when you do that,
why not 20 or 25?
Exactly. Why not 50 if you live in, say, New York City? But we find out that actually shuts the door on many people who are entry level and want to try to get their foot in the door. There's so much empirical evidence that shows that a very high minimum wage particularly hurts minority teenagers. You go to Washington, D.C., and the teenage unemployment rate a couple years ago was about 50%. So it really hurts people that need to get a little bit of experience and need to get their foot in the door. I mean, there's no parent that tells their kids, so when you grow up, I would like for you to flip burgers the rest of your life and to support a family on that. Nobody aspires their children to do that.
Let's switch a little bit and let's talk about, we just finished January, and it was on record for being probably the worst start for the stock market, Wall Street, Dow Jones, that you have seen. What are your concerns about, the market right now? The Federal Reserve said that they were just going to raise interest rates 0.25%. Is there a connection between that, the slowing down of the printing of money and, the quantitative easing and the keeping the interest rates artificially low? What do you assess happening with our market?
Well, generally, when the interest rates go up, that makes bonds far more attractive. And then, of course, theoretically, people will start buying bonds and they kind of dump the market. But the important thing to remember is that, and since I talk to a lot of people about saving, especially young people, if you are saving and you're in your 20s and you have 40 years left of working life, you need to not panic. There's a lot of panic going around. When something happens on Wall Street, we have the presidential candidates. They want to get up there and blame Wall Street, and they want to try to fix it. And they always, imply that you should have all your money in bonds. But I have to say that I think the worst thing you can do during the market is panic. When during the crash of 2008, I knew many people who stopped contributing to their retirement accounts. They took money out, or they didn't contribute anymore. They switched it all to bonds. They were in stocks, and they lost a lot of money doing that. So when I talk to particularly young people about saving for retirement, I always tell them, you need to ignore what's going on. You need to ignore the noise and just stay in it for the long haul. That's extremely important, because over a 40-year time span, if you're invested in the market, you're going to do much better than if you're invested in a 30-year treasury bond.
And speaking along those lines, you do a lot of work with the mandatory spending program side of our budget, the Medicare, not the Medicare, but the Social Security especially. One of the things that concerns me, everyone's talking about Social Security going bankrupt, but when you look at Social Security disability, and you've done some research and work on this, I mean, that's really dragging the system down and dragging those funds down as well. I mean, can you talk about what's happening with Social Security disability?
So right now there are about 11 million people on disability, which is quite shocking, especially that the rate of disability expenditures each year is growing faster than the rate of Social Security retirement benefits. So one of the problems we have in society, besides, the income inequality, which people perceive as a major problem, is that there are many people that aren't working because they're on disability, and you don't get rich off of disability. And one of the main causes of disability is what we call musculoskeletal disorders. But you see an increasing number of younger people getting on disability as a result of these disorders, whether they actually have them or not. You see people in their 20s, 30s, 40s that are now getting disability where 20 years ago they weren't. So that's a huge concern. And disability is obviously a program that is dragging down the entitlement system. It's not as big of an issue as, say, Medicare, but it's still something that needs to be dealt with. We need to provide more incentives for people to actually work, because once you get on disability, when you're in your 20s or 30s or 40s, your chances of going back to work are less than 1%. That's truly frightening.
One of the things, because you and I talked about this, me coming out of the military and going through your retirement physical, when you come out of the military, you just don't automatically get 100% disability. You go through an evaluation, you have, gradated levels of disability that you're given. How does that differ from the federal government system we have?
So the federal government system is you're either disabled or you're not. You are all or nothing. And you get a smaller monthly benefit than you would your Social Security retirement benefit. But the problem is, if you try to go back to work and earn over a certain amount each month, you can lose your disability benefits. So you're stuck. You can't even get a partial disability. So what I've supported at NCPA is we should have a rating system similar to the VA. I realize that the VA has its faults, but we should definitely have some type of rating system where people can get a partial payment and still work.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us and all the great work you do as a senior fellow for the National Center for Policy Analysis. If you want to follow the work of Pamela Villarreal as well as the other senior fellows, go to www.ncpa.org. Again, that's the National Center for Policy Analysis, located right here in Dallas, Texas, and find all of the great research and analysis on these issues that Pam deals with, being the tax and entitlement policy and programs. Up next, we're going to talk about healthcare in the United States of America with Dr. Devon Herrick, who is a senior fellow on healthcare at the National Center for Policy Analysis. This is Colonel Alan West. Come back and join us.
Later this year, for the 58th time, America will choose a president. As a Christian, what are you doing to prepare for the election? Helping you cut through the major media spin is part of the mission of Point of View. We want to provide the best election resources, including a new website, Pray, Organize, Vote, encouraging people to intercede for the upcoming election, to help you get registered so you can exercise the stewardship of voting, to share things to help you get people involved and out to the polls. But to do all of that, we need you to vote right now with your support for Point of View. Show us that you're in this for the long haul as a citizen of heaven as well as the United States. Click Donate Now at the top of the page and give the most generous one-time gift you can at pointofview.net or call 1-800-347-5151. There is a lot of work to be done. Let's get to it together. Pointofview.net and 800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this.
are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again, your guest host for Point of View.
Welcome back to another segment at Point of View. Kirby is over in Hungary teaching a Bible study session to a Bible college there. And this is Colonel Alan West, President and CEO of the National Center for Policy Analysis. This time, we want to talk about another important issue that is related to our economy, and that's healthcare. And joining me in the studio is another one of our senior fellows at the National Center for Policy Analysis, Dr. Devon Herrick, Ph.D. He is a preeminent expert on 21st century medicine, including the evolution of internet-based medicine, consumer-driven healthcare, and key changes in the global market. He has served 2 terms as the chair of the Health Economics Roundtable of the National Association for Business Economics. Dr. Herrick has testified before the U.S. Congress and before state legislatures. He began his career in healthcare financial management for a large healthcare system. As a healthcare economist, Dr. Herrick speaks on healthcare policy issues nationwide. Dr. Herrick, Devon, thanks for joining us here at Point of View Radio.
Well, Alan, thanks for having me.
It's great. You know, without a doubt, one of the major domestic policy, quote unquote, accomplishments of the Obama administration was the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. Talk to us about where we are now with Obamacare. Has it really done what we were told it was going to do back in 2010?
Oh, absolutely not. If you think back before the Affordable Care Act was passed, the debate, the real purpose, despite what they said during the debate, the members of Congress, the opponents, said it would do, what they really wanted the Affordable Care Act to do was to provide coverage to the uninsured and to allow affordable coverage for those who may have pre-existing conditions that made healthcare unaffordable. Okay, you advance 5 years, and what we find is that, we have covered some of the uninsured, but not all, mainly through Medicaid. But for those with pre-existing conditions, they do have coverage if they want it, but it's very expensive. In fact, Obamacare was really premised on the idea that health care would be, or health insurance, I should say, would be a bad deal for most Americans, so that a few Americans who otherwise would have found health care unaffordable have access to coverage.
When they talk about, the coverage, and again, we're talking, about 2,700 pages. If a parent wants to have their kid on their insurance and cover them to the age of 26, okay. We do need to see what we can do for those, with pre-existing conditions. But it's the other about 2,680 pages that, it doesn't make sense. And so when you go back and look at what was the target demographic that we really should have looked at as far as fixing our healthcare system?
Well, the biggest problem I perceive with the Affordable Care Act is that it's not affordable primarily because it does nothing to bend the cost curve. By that I mean it does nothing to really rein in the rising cost of health spending. We could spend our entire GDP on healthcare in useful ways, but it really wouldn't necessarily leave any money left over for other areas of our life. We wouldn't have money left over for housing, for clothing, for food and transportation. What we really need, and what the goal of the Affordable Care Act should have been, was to try to slow the growth in healthcare spending by allowing patients more control over their healthcare decisions.
Well, NCPA was the author of the health savings account. NCPA has been around for 33 years. I thank God that they asked me to come in as the president and CEO. Instead of this expansion of Medicaid, which really seems to be what it is all about, how could we have leveraged health savings accounts to improve health care in the United States of America?
Well, the whole concept of health savings accounts is for individuals to take more control over their own health care dollars. Now, the left will say, no, it's just cost shifting. Well, consumers and workers ultimately bear the cost of our own health care. We bear it through lower wages, lower take-home pay. In the end, it's just part of my compensation as an employee. And if you're self-employed, it comes off of your profit margin. The problem is the people that consume healthcare don't suffer any of the consequences for bad decision-making, and they don't reap any of the benefits for good decision-making. The way to really have expanded health savings accounts and get individuals more involved would have been to provide a level playing field with health care for individuals as well as the coverage workers get through their jobs. And to do that, we would need to expand eligibility for health savings accounts and allow people to begin amassing money in their HSA earlier in their career so that when they get older and maybe their health status begins to deteriorate and their health insurance costs would rise, they would have that money saved up to cover some of those costs. The way it is now, it's our current system is designed to rely on young, healthy coworkers to offset part of the cost for older, middle-aged people who find their health costs higher. And the trouble is the system is not working. The prices are rising and premiums are rising at rates that are 2 to 3 times the rate of inflation, which means over time healthcare is consuming more of our standard of living.
Well, another thing that I want to discuss with you, this concept, this idea of portability. Are we getting to the point where tying health insurance to employment may become an antiquated theme? And then also, what's the importance of having a national healthcare market where people can go out and not be restricted by these state-by-state artificial boundaries as to what they're allowed to look for in health insurance plans?
Well, people sometimes assume that a good job is a job that has health coverage, or any good job should have health coverage. Well, of course, the reason why a lot of jobs provide health coverage is due to a Treasury ruling or an IRS back in the early 50s. And that actually goes back even earlier than that to a ruling by the War Labor Board during World War II that allowed the Kaiser Shipbuilding Company to provide fringe benefits in lieu of wages to attract workers. So it's not a natural phenomenon that we have coverage through work. It's just an artifact of a tax law that gives us a discount for coverage obtained through work. Well, the problem with that over time has been that, well, I've already mentioned we're insulated from some of the costs and some of the decisions of deciding what coverage I want or deciding what kind of care I want. Someone else has made all the decisions. My insurance company, for example, has decided before I even enter my doctor's office. They've decided what they will pay for, what they won't, how much they will pay. The reason why my doctor does not like talking to me on the phone is because my insurer's made no provisions to pay my doctor for talking to me on the phone. I can talk to my accountant, I can talk to a lawyer, they can bill me for that. But our very artificial healthcare marketplace has essentially created a bureaucracy that does not really serve the needs of patients.
When you look at then why are healthcare, the insurance premiums going up so drastically that we see out there? I mean, and explain to us about this risk corridor thing that is written into the Affordable Care Act for insurance companies. I think a lot of people may not understand what that is.
Well, the reason why health insurance premiums are rising is because healthcare is very expensive. Now, the Affordable Care Act, especially the plans in the exchange and even the employer plans and the regulations that cover all insurance now, are really premised on the idea that a lot of people have to get a bad deal so a few people can get a better deal than they otherwise would. Mm-hmm. And the trouble with that, again, is the fact that I have no incentive as an individual to curtail my spending. I've talked to insurance companies, I've talked to experts in the industry, and they said that after Obamacare went into effect, that a lot of people had no incentive whatsoever to curtail their spending. They went to the doctor. Maybe they went for the first time in a couple of years. Well, if they had heavy subsidies, cost-sharing subsidies, subsidized premiums, well, there again, they were, really, I would say that they were quickly told by their physician, by maybe the hospital, the clinic, hey, there's a lot of things we got to do to you. Well, they were getting health care that maybe went back 10 years of neglected health care, all in one year. That's why our Blue Cross insurer in Texas lost $400 million. That's why all the insurers seem to be losing money in the exchange. It's just not well-designed plans. They're not well-designed because of the regulations imposed on them.
You keep, I've been listening, you keep bringing up a very important word real quickly before we go to break. And we talked about this before you came on air. Are we incentivizing healthy living?
Oh, we are not incentivizing healthy living. In fact, we are incentivizing people who choose not to do anything to take care of their health. The healthcare law, the Affordable Care Act, is premised on the idea that no matter what your health, no matter what you do to protect your health, you really can't get a break on premiums. I mean, yeah, they have some incentives that will allow your insurer to have a wellness program, to give you a few extra bucks here and there. But that really is not going to do anything to lower the cost of health care.
Well, we've got you for another segment, and in the next segment, we're going to come back and we want to talk about some of these presidential candidates out there and some of their healthcare ideas and plans. And remember, you can call in to us here at Point of View Radio at 1-800-351-1212. The entire last 30 minutes of the show will be dedicated to taking your calls, but also follow us on pointofview.net and click Watch Now so you can see us live streaming. And look, what color tie do I have? That's how we're going to test you, whether or not you're following us. Colonel Allen West will be right back.
Now, back to Point of View, your listener-supported source for truth.
Welcome back to Point of View Radio. This is Colonel Allen West, guest hosting for Kirby, who is over in Hungary. Not Hungary, but Hungary. And he is over there giving teaching a Bible college class. 1-800-351-1212, 1-800-351-1212 to get in for your calls. We're coming back with Dr. Devon Herrick, who's a senior fellow on healthcare economics at the National Center for Policy Analysis. Okay, doctor, we talked in the first segment about the things that are not going right with our healthcare system and the Affordable Care Act. What are the solutions? Let's go with your top five.
I think the top five would be repeal the mandate that forces everyone to buy a product they oftentimes don't really want. Repeal the mandate that makes coverage a bad deal. There's all kinds of regulations and special interests that had a hand in deciding what our health care looks like. Allow insurers to design health plans that individuals and families may actually want to pay for. Level the playing field, so if I'm self-employed or if I'm an individual buying on the individual market, that I get some tax help the same way that an employee
large corporations
might get.
Yeah.
And one thing we've talked about earlier was allow incentives for people to maintain healthy lifestyles. That is something that's really lacking. Is if I go to the gym every day, if I keep my blood pressure in check, keep my weight in check, there's only very small incentives that insurers can provide for me for doing that.
Now, when you talk about these solutions, what is really keeping the legislators up there in the House and Senate from doing it? I mean, one of the things, let's be very honest. I mean, the Republican Party said, give us the House, give us the Senate, we'll, make something happen. Of course, they do have the president in the White House, but still, we have not seen a proposal to really come up that talks about what is the alternative, what is the option. So if you were advising the chairman of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, which oversees healthcare, Fred Upton out of Michigan, what would you say to him?
Well, I would say provide every American a tax credit to let them use that for the coverage of their choice. If they would prefer to have their employer plan, I let them keep their employer plan. They lose the tax credit. Allow Americans to choose the health plan they're willing to pay for. I would like that to be a health savings account coupled with a high deductible plan, but a lot of people may say, I don't want that plan. Well, I think people should have their choice of what they want. I also think we need to change the regulations that currently force us to buy plans that are not really a good value and allow insurers to design plans that I may actually want to have. Allow insurers the freedom of producing plans that maybe they have limited benefits, maybe they have high deductibles, but let them out of all the mandated benefits that are really due to special interests that have lobbied to try to make me buy what they have to sell. I think, and Medicaid, we've mentioned Medicaid, really the biggest thing that the Affordable Care Act did was expand Medicaid to, I forget now how many millions and millions of more people. Well, Medicaid on paper is a generous health plan. We all know it's not a very good health plan. Mm-hmm. Why not let states give them the freedom to design health care that are, for low-income, indigent people that meets their state's unique needs? We have 50 states. Let 50 states experiment. Let them create incentives. For some of the things that many states have asked to do that they're not allowed to do is impose work requirements on individuals who qualify, some individuals who qualify for Medicaid. Require modest premiums, require maybe some cost sharing. In other words, design insurance for moderate income families that is similar to private insurance. Yeah. Currently, the Department of Health and Human Services has not allowed that.
Let's talk about what is going on today and what we are starting to get into now. We are officially, truly going into the real presidential primary season with the Iowa caucus starting today. When you look at these presidential candidates, let's tell me who really has put a health care proposal, a plan out there that is viable and reasonable, that can get us on the right track as far as affordable health care in the United States of America.
Well, Colonel, if you really look at all these proposals, there's not a lot of substance to them, and I think the reason is if you're smart, you don't want to be a target. You put out your
but that's a sad commentary that I'm not going to tell you because I don't want you to say anything about it. It's kind of like just elect me and then I'll figure it out later.
That's a good deal if you can pull it off, but unfortunately we need to know the details.
Yes.
Jeb Bush has, I think, provided most of the details, more than a lot of the other candidates. He would provide a tax credit that would allow individuals to purchase coverage. He would provide some interim funding to transition some of those that are on Obamacare to alternative marketplace. So over and all, his proposal reflects a lot of the consensus in the conservative community. Mm-hmm. Ben Carson has some great ideas. He's in favor of a lifetime HSA. He doesn't call it that, but I'm calling it that because we know what an HSA is. A health savings account is an account that the individual controls.
Yeah.
He has backed away from his initial proposal to scale back Medicare and reform it to a private program. Ted Cruz has some great ideas. He would love to expand HSAs, make them more flexible. He has not rolled out all the provisions of his health proposal, but he also would, I think, have a system of tax credits. So there is a lot of consensus, but a lot of the candidates seem to be a little bit afraid to really spell it out and say, this piece of paper reflects everything I believe in healthcare.
Well, let's look at the other side of the aisle between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is stand up and being a staunch supporter of the Affordable Care Act. And like I said earlier in our previous segment, I mean, there are some things that are workable, but we don't need 159 new government agencies and bureaucracies. I mean, what the Affordable Care Act seems to be to me is a huge wealth transfer redistribution scheme with 20 new taxes and everything that really fuels the government. But let's talk about Mr. Senator Bernie Sanders. I mean, what about his health care proposal?
Oh, well, I wrote a town hall column a while back that talked about Bernie Sanders. It's a Robin Hood scheme for redistribution. It's really just, it's wishful thinking. What he would like to do is have a single-payer health system, a Medicare for all. I usually call it Medicaid for all because it's unworkable, where no one had any kind of cost sharing. It'd be paid for with your tax dollars, likely a very high additional payroll tax. It would have no rationing. But if you look at all the single-payer healthcare systems in the world, the way they work is by overtly rationing care. They pay hospitals a global budget with no extra, money for the number of patients you see. They restrict the wages of doctors. They have price controls on drugs. They control the amount of equipment. By definition, a single payer is a monopsony that is designed to control what it pays for healthcare by just saying no. And that if you're in Britain, that means saying no to some good cancer drugs. But of course, Senator Sanders has not admitted that. He's not said, well, we'll have to ration. He wants everyone to think it would be just wonderful. He believes it would be. But of course, we know it wouldn't be wonderful.
Yeah. Now, in the final 25 seconds I have with you, the VA healthcare system, Affordable Care Act, parallels, similarities?
Well, the VA healthcare system for the longest time was touted as the model for what we should have. And it's under the strain of war, it has proven to be a very bureaucratic system with quality that is really cheating a lot of our veterans. Affordable Care Act will have to be repaired. It has to be reformed. It's a matter of when. Even if you love the law, it has to be done sooner or later. The sooner, the better.
Dr. Devon Herrick, Senior Fellow, Healthcare Economist at the National Center for Policy Analysis. You can follow his work at www.ncpa.org. It's a pleasure and an honor to work with Dr. Herrick. The man has some great ideas. This is Colonel Alan West, guest hosting Point of View Radio, 1-800-351-1212. We'll be right back.
An extremely rare opportunity is about to pass you by. February 1st, this weekend, is the deadline to reserve your spot on a trip to the Holy Land and places from the book of Acts and Revelation with Kirby Anderson. Do yourself a huge favor. Even if you think there's no way, at least give it a look. 10 days in Israel, or 7 days in Greece, or see it all in 15 days. Click the Journey to Jerusalem banner at pointofview.net. Maybe, just maybe, it's time to realize you can do it this year. But you have to reserve your spot and make a deposit now by this weekend. Imagine yourself in Caesarea and Nazareth, where Jesus grew up, in Capernaum, on the Sea of Galilee, the Dead Sea, Masada, the Temple Mount, the Garden Tomb, then the thrill of Greece in the footsteps of Paul, Athens, Corinth, Berea, Thessalonica, Philippi. See the full schedule at pointofview.net. Come on, take that step. Pointofview.net. Pointofview.net. Journey to Jerusalem with Kirby Anderson and Point of View. Point of View will continue after this.
I just thank God for y'all. I listen to you every day, truly. I wanted to thank y'all for everything you do each day to inform Christian families and our community about the things we can do, and just the way you're so informative. I listen to you daily and love you guys and appreciate you so much.
God bless you, Kirby, for keeping this show so on track and for the decades of wonderful help to this nation that Point of View has been. We're all big fans of your work, and we pray that God will just prosper it.
As a Christian, over the years that I've followed this program, I am constantly challenged to be on guard and to evaluate what's going on. And if for no other reason, to protect the caliber and the truth of your programming, I need to participate and to back your program financially to ensure that the truth stays out there for people to hear, to view, and to be a part of.
This is Point of View Radio.
Hi, this is Kirby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging: apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View continues right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, your guest host for Point of View.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for the final hour on this Monday, the 1st of February, Point of View Radio. Colonel Alan West, President, CEO, National Center for Policy Analysis, guest hosting for Kirby, who is over in Hungary teaching for a Bible college. You can join us calling in at 1-800-351-1212. And remember, the last 30 minutes, the last segment, will be dedicated to me answering your calls. You can also follow us at pointofview.net and click on Watch Now. And if you look and see right now, you got one dog-faced soldier, and I'm sitting here staring at two devil dogs. United States Marine Corps. You don't say retired Marine, you don't say former Marine, you just say Marine.
Marines, that's
right.
Yes,
and I learned that my older brother was a Vietnam-era Marine wounded at Quai Son, Charlie Company, 1st Battalion, 26 Marines. Here on my left, I have Clint Sosamon. Did I say it right?
Yes, Sosamon, absolutely.
Okay, and then I also have Jacob Schick here on my right. And Clint, right now, he is a Marine who joined and enlisted after high school in 1994. He participated in Operation Uphold Democracy in the Caribbean island of Haiti. After the mission was completed, he received orders to attend the Marine Security Guard School. See, they don't allow Army soldiers, to guard embassies because our uniforms don't look that good. So
that's fair. That's a fair statement.
Okay. They had the Marines do it. But the real reason why we have him here is because he heads up an organization called Honor, Courage, and Commitment. Now, Jake is a war relations specialist with the Brain Performance Institute Warrior Training Team. He's a third-generation Marine who epitomizes service and sacrifice. After a triple-stacked tank mine detonated below his vehicle in Al Anbar province in Iraq in 2004, he suffered compound fractures in his left leg and left arm, multiple skin, ligament, and bone losses, varying burns, partial loss of his left hand, and also some PTSD issues. Jake has undergone 46 operations, 23 blood transfusions, and countless hours of rehabilitation. If you were paying attention to the movie American Sniper, you would have seen a cameo appearance of Jake there. But I'm glad to have you both here because Jake is here to talk to us about the 22 kill, which I wear my little black 22 kill ring. So let's start off talking to you, Mr. Sosamon. What are you doing with Honor, Courage, and Commitment for our veterans?
So, thank you. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to have us come on today and talk about who we are and what we do. Honor, Courage, Commitment is a veteran empowerment organization that is all about helping veterans become job creators versus job seekers. So for those veterans who are entrepreneurial in spirit and have a business idea and are trying to figure out that next step, whether it's how do I go from my currently established business to the next level or how to just even get started. They come in and we put them through a 12-week program that focuses solely on them and focuses on them starting their business with a partnership with Southern Methodist University. They go through some classes down there. We have people who come into our office. You come in and talk to our class every time, and I know that it's a good opportunity for them to not only meet different individuals in the community that they probably would not have that opportunity to meet, but they get to learn from successful entrepreneurs, community leaders, business individuals on how to start a business, how to run a business, what works, what doesn't work, and things like that. So it's just for example, in 2015, we had 13 veterans go through the program. 9 of them have businesses that are up and running right now. One of them is running for Congress, and one of them is actually in the funding stage, and we're about to incubate him out of our own facility. So,
I got to tell you, one of the key things I think that we do need are more veterans who have been on the current battlefield to be serving up there in Congress to get the policies right at that strategic level. So, I mean, Jake, how did you get involved with Operation 22 along with Cliff here?
It was, I've been involved with 22 Kill since pretty much its inception. I've always been a big supporter. I've lost brothers to suicide, unfortunately, once they got home. And my unit, I got hit in 2004 in the Sunni Triangle, and we were busy in 2004.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a lot going on. And for some of these warriors to survive what they survived, to come home, to die by their own hand, it really hit me hard. And if I sat here and told you that the 18 months I was in the hospital, when I got out, if I never contemplated suicide, if I told you that, I'd be lying to your face. And so I know the struggles that come along with post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury. And it is a fight that will get you if you're not focused.
Well, tell us about the significance of the ring that we wear on our salute hand, on our trigger finger.
Yes, sir. So the honor ring is worn on the trigger finger for obvious reasons. It's obvious reasons why it's worn on the trigger finger. But for us, it's a silent salute to all those who served and or are serving, and to highlight the fact that we're losing 22 of our nation's finest every day to suicide, and it's an unacceptable statistic. We've got to do something about it. And so 22 Kill, I came on board as executive director not too long ago, and it's just been hitting the ground running and raising awareness and trying to get over into the prevention side the best we can. We need to do it strategically, so it's put together and it's wired tight. And, we have supporters like you, and who also happens to be a battle-hardened warrior. And we need more of those. We need people with a voice to say, hey, this is unacceptable, but we can change it together. Together we can do it. Alone, we're not going to do much. Nothing worth doing is worth doing alone.
Well, I tell you, we just finished speaking with Dr. Devon Herrick, who's our healthcare economist at the National Center for Policy Analysis. Without a doubt, you've been involved with the VA system. Tell us the good news and the bad news stories about the Veterans Administration hospital system.
Good news, it still exists. And I think they truly are trying to get better. I know Secretary McDonald has tried to do a lot and rattle some cages, but the people that aren't involved in that system need to understand it is a giant system. And not only that, they take care of millions of veterans, and a lot of them are overworked and understaffed, and unfortunately, that's just the way it is. And I think until we break it down to this bare bones and start again, not much is going to change. At the end of the day, to be fair to warriors, it's run by the government, and a lot of things that are run by the government are not, let's say, very successful. And so, but the good news is that the bad news is. They're still waiting. The Warriors have to wait a long time to get seen, and the backlog issue is still there. Secretary McDonald came out himself last week saying that it hasn't changed, it hasn't gotten better, and we've got to do something to change that too, because these Warriors need attention. These guys are suffering, and I know from being physically wounded that physical pain reminds you you're alive, but mental pain will test your will to stay that way.
Absolutely. Before we go to break, we got about a minute, Cliff. What do you see as far as the veterans that are coming in trying to start businesses? Is their biggest obstacle, I guess, real quick?
Yeah, their biggest obstacle is not knowing what you don't know. There's those things, hey, I know this, I know that I don't know that, but it's that unknowing, the things I don't know that I don't know.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out how to overcome that obstacle of doing the red tape that it takes to start a business. Yeah. Any of us can put our name on a shingle and put it by the door, but if you don't do that in the right way, it's not going to end up well for you. And not to mention that there's the mountain of paperwork you've got to do. So putting them through that gauntlet of say, hey, this is how you start it, and here's the people that are here that are dedicated to making sure that you get there.
Okay. Well, I got to tell you, we appreciate y'all being here. We're going to keep y'all for another segment. Colonel Alan West, guest hosting Point of View Radio, 800-351-1212. Give us a call.
This is Viewpoints with Kirby Anderson.
Today is the official beginning of the election season with the Iowa caucus. Over the next few months, every state will have either a primary or a caucus, and a few states will have both a primary and a closed caucus. The election this year will most likely determine the future of this country. The next president will appoint 2 to 3 Supreme Court justices and tip the balance of the court one way or the other. The next Congress will consider whether it will continue down the road of profligate spending or return to a foundation of fiscal sanity. Politicians at both the federal level and the state level will consider legislation that will either restrict abortion or allow it to continue and provide taxpayer funding. Much is at stake in this election. As Christians, we need to consider what part we will play in this election. We have a civic responsibility because we're both citizens of heaven and citizens of earth. Good citizenship involves being registered to vote and going out and voting intelligently in every election. You know, Jesus says that believers are the salt of the earth and the light of the world. We have a stewardship responsibility when it comes to using our gifts, talents, and opportunities. Jesus also described the importance of this stewardship in his parable of the talents. He was critical of the one servant who buried his talent. We as voters should not bury our talent, but use the opportunity God has given us to vote responsibly. On my radio program, I've talked about the statistics from the 2012 presidential election. First, there were 13 million born-again Christians who were not registered to vote. Second, there were an additional 26 million who were registered to vote who did not vote. Over the next few months, I encourage you to make sure that people in your sphere of influence are registered to vote and then educate them about the issues and the candidates. This is no time to sit on the sidelines. I'm Kirby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
Take Kirby and the Point of View team with you on the go with the Point of View app. Search for Point of View Radio at the Apple or Google Play stores.
You're listening to Point of View, your listener-supported source for truth.
Welcome back to Point of View Radio. Colonel Alan West, President CEO, National Center for Policy Analysis, is your guest host. Call-in line is 1-800-351-1212, 1-800-351-1212. Visit us at pointofview.net, and you can click the Watch Now and see us sitting here. We're with Cliff Sosamon and Jacob Schick. Cliff is the Executive Director of Honor, Courage, and Commitment. You can follow them at honorcouragecommitment.org. And Jake is the Executive Director of 22Kill. You can follow him at 22kill.com. Tell us about this interesting little trip you just had recently, Jake.
I did. I got to go to the fundraiser in Iowa that Trump put on, and a good friend of mine, John Wayne Walding, who's a Green Beret and was wounded in action in Afghanistan, invited me to come on that, and he said, hey, I think it'd be great for 22Kill. And I said, awesome, brother. And luckily we had Jeff Kyle with us and also Jeff Houston, who's another Green Beret. And so it was good. Look, the thing is we went out there, and I think it's important to note that we don't endorse any one candidate. That's not our point. But if you're going to say, we'll help warriors and we're going to give you money, I will absolutely, we will show up and we'll be a part of that, because it's all about fighting for the greater good.
Yeah,
has nothing to do with the candidate
and the thing is, if, as we talked about in the first segment, if the government was doing their job, you would not have to have these types of private sector endeavors to help our warriors.
Precisely.
So continue.
So I gotta say, it was a great event. John Wayne Walding did did a hell of a job up there. He really motivated and inspired. I mean, that room was full of warriors. It was, I think we had a couple World War II all the way to post 9/11 warriors and everything in between. And so it was a really inspiring event. Being able to see our brothers and sisters that came before us is always an honor for me. And I know John and Jeff feel the same way. And it was good because we got to raise issue with the fact that we're losing 22 of our nation's finest every day, and it's got to stop. And Donald and his family were very, very gracious, and they're, I have to say, whether you like them or not, that they are a true red-blooded patriotic family. That's just the way it is. And that said, if Bernie Sanders wants to call us and say, "Hey, we want to do a fundraiser, would y'all come?" I'll be there, because it's not about the candidate. It's about it's not a political issue. It's a veteran issue.
And one of the things in our very first segment, we talked with Pamela Villarreal, who is our Tax and the Economy Senior Fellow at NCPA, and she talked about the charitable contributions, how it's so important to keep that there, because you want to make sure that Americans are able to take care of Americans. Mm-hmm. And we don't want to penalize success so bad because people are fearing that the government is going to come in and decide, where and who should be the winners and the losers. So, hats off to people that are giving back to our veterans, because you wouldn't have these businesses, you wouldn't have the success that you have if it were not for the people that are willing to make that last full measure of devotion.
And to that point too is none of the stuff that we do is cheap, right? We are a nonprofit, but at the same time, it takes money to run our day-to-day operations. And if somebody, I don't care who you are, if you're somebody who believes in our warriors and believes in what they've done for this country, and you want to give back by giving money to that, then we'll take it, because it takes that to be able to help them.
Absolutely. And I think that at least, when you are donating to your organizations, there is an investment, and there is a return on investment that people can see. A lot of times what we're looking at is our taxpayer dollars going to the Veterans Administration Hospital, and then we see the result being the poor health care of our veterans. So, maybe we should look at putting our dollars where they can be at the cutting edge, the tip of the spear, where they can make a difference. And with that being said, tell us about the new endeavor that Honor, Courage, and Commitment is about to go on, called Operation 22.
Absolutely. So Honor, Courage, Commitment, and 22 Kill are coming together, and we are putting this new initiative called Operation 22. It's a mission that we're putting out to people to help spread awareness and help us with fundraising. So it's a new initiative where we're challenging people to come out and to donate $22 a month. When they donate $22 a month, we're going to give them one of these honor rings that has the Operation 22 logo on it. Mm-hmm. We're going to give them a really nice T-shirt. It's got the American flag on the right sleeve and Operation 22 on the back, so they can continue to go out and spread the message and spread awareness for what we're doing at 22 Kill, Honor, Courage, Commitment. We then challenge them to go out and recruit 22 other individuals to join them in their mission to help us with the veterans issues that we're facing across the country today. When they reach 22 individuals, we're going to give them a specialized challenge coin, which, as you know, being in the military, we all have our challenge coins, and we honor those things and like to display them. So only people who get 22 individuals to join will get one of these coins. And so the whole purpose is to just help us spread awareness. And so this is just another one of those things that we're doing. We're launching it tomorrow on February 2nd to be able to do that.
What do you really see, Jake, as well? What do you want to see come out of this joint endeavor with Honor, Courage, and Commitment, Operation 22?
To me, it's, in the military, we have a saying, is one team, one fight. Yeah. We're in it together. And I want to see, at the end of the day, we're all on the spinning ball of chaos together, and none of us are getting out alive. Yeah. So we might as well join together while we can and do epic things with the time we got. And so that's what we want to do here. We want to be able to, the $22 a month, it comes out $264 a year. I mean, quite frankly, that's the easy part. Doing your $22 a month is easy, but finding 22 like-minded patriots, that's going to be the more challenging part. But here's the thing. I get asked all the time, "Hey, Jake, what can I do to help warriors?" Here's an avenue right here. All you got to do is log on to a website, click on a link, and fill out the info, and you're on your way. And trust me, we're going to be significantly impacting a lot of warriors and their families, and we will stay the course in the fight for the greater good on this whole thing.
We got a caller that I want to go to. This is Mike in Alabama, and Mike wants to talk to us about his experience with the VA. Mike, are you there?
Yes.
Go ahead. You're here at Point of View Radio.
Yeah, thanks, Colonel West. I retired from the Army. I served 23 years. It's been a while in Anbar Province, so I share that in common with your guest today. When I was going to retire, I had a lot of things going on. I can imagine for those who don't retire and they get out of the service, they experience similar. My problem with the VA, and I think this is where the policy thing would help, would be with the soldier getting out. The burden of proof is put on him. He's constantly engaged in a battle with the VA to prove. That was the last thing I wanted to do after serving for so many years, and I was wondering if there was a policy thing that could help. And also the other point would be working with non-government organizations or NGOs and the tie-in for the interagency, those types of things, to get something like 22 Kill or other similar organizations involved somehow, semi-involved in the process. And that was my question, is if your guests are aware of these problems, they probably are after experiencing that, and what they think could help.
Okay, thanks so much, Mike, and we'll go to Jake.
Yeah, to me, it's the VA, unfortunately, is very standoffish when it comes to partnering with any NGO or any VS, a veteran service organization. So I feel your pain, Mike. First and foremost, thanks for your service, brother, and hang tough. But it's going to take. The VA's been failing, well over 6 decades. It's going to take a large and painstaking change for anything positive to happen on a grand scale. So at the end of the day, we can put the pressure on DC. That's the only way it's going to change. That's why we need people getting involved.
Cliff, do you think there are enough veterans at the middle management to senior management level in the VA system?
Yeah, probably not, because I think if there were, we wouldn't see a lot of the issues that we see today, just because I know how we are when when we get together and we're talking with other veterans. I would feel that it would be a little different. It's a political thing, right? When you get to a certain level, and then it becomes a government bureaucracy and everything that goes along with that. When you start talking about unions and everything else in the government. So, it's going to take an act of Congress to be able to change something. And I think you know that better than anybody else, how that works. But I would say. And
that's why we need more veterans in
Congress. Absolutely.
Well, I want to thank you, Cliff Sosamon, who is the Executive Director of Honor, Courage, and Commitment Incorporated, honorcouragecommitment.org, and Jake Schick. I want to thank you. He is the Executive Director of 22 Kill. You can find them at 22kill.com. And please, I got it right, Oregon.com. And please, support Operation 22. Go to their websites, and it'll be launched officially tomorrow, right?
Yeah, there'll be a link. Your video. Thank you very much for helping us out. We'll be right there on the front page to our website tomorrow morning, bright and early.
All right. Colonel Alan West, guest hosting here at Point of View Radio. This last segment will all be your phone calls, 800-351-1212. Call us. We'll be standing by. Thank you.
Later this year, for the 58th time, America will choose a president. As a Christian, what are you doing to prepare for the election? Helping you cut through the major media spin is part of the mission of Point of View. We want to provide the best election resources, including a new website, Pray, Organize, Vote, encouraging people to intercede for the upcoming election, to help you get registered so you can exercise the stewardship of voting, to share things to help you get people involved and out to the polls. But to do all of that, we need you to vote right now with your support for Point of View. Show us that you're in this for the long haul as a citizen of heaven as well as the United States. Click Donate Now at the top of the page and give the most generous one-time gift you can at pointofview.net or call 1-800-347-5151. There is a lot of work to be done. Let's get to it together. pointofview.net and 800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this.
You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again, your guest host for Point of View.
Welcome back, Point of View Radio. Colonel Alan West, President and CEO of the National Center for Policy Analysis here in Dallas. This segment is all designed for you, these last two segments. 1-800-351-1212, 1-800-351-1212. Let's fill up the call lines. We're going to start off with a call from Jack in California. And Jack, you're on with Colonel Alan West here at Point of View Radio.
Colonel, I would just, on two separate occasions, as well as this morning, a week or so ago, I was listening to Point of View, and there was a general theme that everybody should vote. And there are so many political morons in this country. If everyone voted, we'd be worse off than we are now, if that's possible.
Well,
intelligent, informed person who understands the United States Constitution and the founding of this nation should vote. Period.
Well, thanks so much for the call, Jack. And if you just listen in, I'm going to put you on the whole line. You're absolutely right that we need to make sure that not just everyone getting out and vote. We want to educate and we want to inform voters. That's the most important thing because, recently I think there was a survey done of some college students who actually thought that Judge Judy was a member of the Supreme Court. And we've often seen these man on the street interviews and what have you. And it comes back to our education process. I mean, think about, some of us that grew up, we had civics. We understood the three branches of government. We understood co-equal branches, separation of powers. We understood the system of federalism. I mean, we're a lot more informed citizens. But then also we had individuals that, were truly not coming out trying to manipulate us based upon poll-tested, marketed messages, but they had a message to deliver to us, and we could make those good informed decisions. We could understand some of the policies. And, really, I have to tell you, that's my focus with the staff we have at the National Center for Policy Analysis, to take some of these critical issues and get it out into the hands of the American people so that they can be better informed. Because you're right. I believe that when we are better informed, we're citizens. Where we're not informed, we're subjects. So thank you so much for the call, Jack. And we are now going to go to Don in California. Don, you're on with Colonel Alan West, Point of View Radio.
Hi, it was John. Hey, Colonel Allen, my privilege to talk to you. I spent 27 years in the reserves.
Thank you for your service.
Reserves, and got activated a few times. And when we were back in the States after our overseas deployment, a lot of Marines who were reserve Marines who had been recalled had, a lot of them were college students looking for a GI Bill. And we had losses just among reservists, guys who didn't have a lot of deployments, who hadn't been. But anyway, the thing is that reservists, active duty, it seems like whether you get out before you retire, without a retirement, or you retire, there seems to me to be the need to be for a long-term accountability so that we can check on these people. I think there was one organization and I forget the name of it, but basically it was something like Still on Duty or do you know what I'm speaking of?
No, I understand the concept, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, there is an organization that does this, and it's kind of like, the Marine Corps, once a Marine, always a Marine, and, and the Oath Keepers, I took the oath to defend the nation, and just because I got out doesn't mean that I quit.
No statute of limitations.
Right. And so you keep bringing those people together and for meetings, for time, and those that suffer no illnesses and go on to become successful and get good jobs, whether it be doctors or lawyers or whatever, and many have done that. But there's others who spent time in the military, and it was like the only family they had. They get out, and now they're lost. You need to keep those guys accountable in some way and keep them coming back to some kind of meeting, whether it be like reserves, where I wouldn't say once every month, but at least maybe once every 6 months. Make these guys accountable, keep tabs with them, and offer training incentive. If you come in, we'll give you coupons for, who knows. But it's something that can be done relatively inexpensively, which compared to the cost of everything else that we do in the suicide rate, it sounds like peanuts.
No, you know what? That is a great idea, Don. Let me tell you, I remember when I was on the House Armed Services Committee up there during my stint in Congress, and we had, maybe the first time ever, we had a joint hearing with the head of DOD, the Secretary of Defense, and also the head of the Veterans Administration System at the time, General Shinseki. And we talked about how we could have that seamless transition up there at that level to make sure that no one dropped through the cracks, especially with our reserve and National Guard component folks. But what you also see, if there are veterans that aren't near a military base or someplace where they have those type of support centers, you're right, they do fall into the cracks. They're not remembered. They're not thought of. And I think one of the great things we could do right now is reinvigorate the VFW, American Legion, the AMVET system. I mean, we have all of these posts that are out there. And sometimes when you go into it, I mean, it's like a generation of warrior has been lost. We still see a lot of the Korean and Vietnam era veterans, but we need to have the outreach through the VFW, through the American Legion, through the AMVETS, and some of the other veteran service organizations, the Reserve Officers Association, the MOA, whatever, to bring those people in. We need to have that type of community aspect within the veteran community. So,
could I add there? I would agree, and I think as part of their getting out, their final steps to getting out, that they should affiliate with an American Legion, be given a free 1-year membership to affiliate. They should be greeted and brought in, given a little ceremony. I think that's a great idea, and it does speak to the point, like you say, there are not reserve centers everywhere, and there are not military bases everywhere, and even less now with BRAC and stuff. But I like that, and so I would encourage you to push for that and make that as part of the release system of the American military, especially those who have deployed, that they do that they literally make it, that they affiliate and give them a free membership with the local, American Legion or VFW, depending on what they're eligible for.
And I know there's a lot of young men out there and women that ride motorcycles. You can join with the American Legion riders. I got my motorcycle, and I'm a paid up for life member of the American Legion, a legacy member, a life member of the VFW. But great question, great call, Don, and hopefully we have some leaders out there in the VFW and American Legion, some of these other organizations that were listening. Thanks so much, Don, for the call.
Thank you.
All right, we are now going to go to Crystal out in Nevada. Crystal, you're on with Colonel Alan West, Point of View Radio.
Thank you. Thank you for taking my call. Actually, your conversation with the last gentleman, I think, addresses or speaks to quite a few of the elements that I was going to bring forward.
Well, let's still talk about it.
Well, amen. I am married to a Native American, one of the 5 major tribes here in Nevada, and they have a term. They say all my relations, and that not only every person in every tribe is part of the greater family, all people actually on the earth, but, nature and things like that. But what you see is a lot of the veterans, there's a lot of honor for veterans in the Native American community, but there's also, statistically, being Native American, there are high rates of suicide. And I was wondering about the statistics, the 22 servicemen, would that possibly be higher among the Native American vets? And when you spoke about the VFW and American Legion, maybe that could be something that could happen on the reservations, because these individuals are generally awesome warriors, like you said, to the core, and they often end up in leadership positions. And we had a tragedy on Nevada Day a couple of years ago. One of our tribe attempted suicide and didn't succeed. I'm so thankful. And he's a valuable member of our society today, but one did succeed on the very same day, and he was a leader in one of the other tribes.
Well, I think that, I can answer the question for certain, and of course the 22 kill ring is about the 22 veterans that are committing suicide a day in the United States of America. I'm not sure if there are VFW, American Legion posts on Indian reservations. I mean, maybe you can help to elaborate on that.
To my knowledge, there are not.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe with our surviving friends, we could possibly look into starting something like that.
I think that's a great thing that we should be doing. I mean, when you think about the contributions of the Navajo code talkers during the Pacific Theater of Operations during World War II, we cannot forget any demographic or any segment of the United States of America. They're all our brothers and sisters. They all are putting on the uniform. They all raised their right hand to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and to bear true faith and allegiance to the same. And they deserve our love and admiration and our care. Thank you so much, Crystal, for your phone call.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, we are going to take a break, and we will be back for our final segment here on the day, Monday, the 1st of February. Iowa Caucus Day. Colonel Allen West guest hosting here, Point of View Radio. Please call us, 800-351-1212. We will be right back, and I look forward to talking to you.
Now, back to Point of View, your listener-supported source for truth.
Welcome back, Point of View Radio. In our final 9 minutes, Colonel Allen West guest hosting for Kirby, who is over in Hungary, teaching a Bible college class there. Call-in number 1-800-351-1212, 1-800-351-1212. pointofview.net. If you click on the Watch Now, you can see how ugly I really am. I do have a face made for radio. We're going to go to Daniel in Georgia. Thank God we got someone from Georgia that called in. That's my home state, and I'm glad you're representing. Daniel, what's on your mind?
Well, a lot of times, Colonel West, we always hear the negative. That seems to speak volumes, but we don't ever hear the good. And I just wanted to tell you that over the years, I've whenever your name is mentioned, I either read it or I listen to it, and I always hear the other people's response. And I just wanted to tell you that I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
You've been consistent. Your values are strong. And just wanted to tell you I'm proud of you. And, you know, we don't hear that often. And since you were on the radio and I heard your voice and was listening to you, I just wanted to to add my 2 cents. And I think that you're a fine example for men and for young men coming up, just by your consistency and holding true to your values. And I think that you've done a fine job of honoring your parents. You've done well. Just continue on, and may God richly bless you.
Well, Daniel, thank you so much. And to everyone out there that can hear my voice, just keep me in prayer, because each and every day I, pray that prayer of Jabez, oh, that you would bless me indeed and enlarge my territory, that your hand would be upon me to protect me from evil, that I may not cause pain. But I add in a little bit, that I can be blessed with the wisdom and the discernment to defend faith and freedom for your people. And God granted, as he had requested. My parents are both passed away. My dad passed in 1986, and my mother in 1994. They're both buried there in Marietta National Cemetery because of their service to the United States. My dad was a World War II veteran. My mother served almost 25 years as a civilian servant with the 6th Marine Corps District Headquarters. And when I think about we're going into, Black History Month, the great thing about what Daniel just said, parents. And when you look at what is going on in the Black community, when you look at, really all across the urban centers in the United States of America, we don't have parents. We don't have that balance of mothers and fathers and homes that are raising our children to respect authority, raising our children and caring about their education, raising our children and caring about their character. Now, I'm not a perfect guy. The only perfect person that ever walked this earth was Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. But we can try to emulate. We can try to be, as the Army said when I first joined, all that we can be. And Daniel, I want to thank you for, sharing that, because every now and then you kind of do need a little, pat on the back, just the same as my dad would give me a kick in the butt. So thanks a lot for that. All right. Hey, folks, call us. Talk to me. What's going on in your life? Because if you don't call us, I'm going to have to talk to you. And I got 5 minutes and 26 seconds. And this is what I want to fill you in on, a couple of things that are going on that really have me upset and steamed. Just a couple of days ago, the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei of Iran, pinned medals on the officers, congratulating them for capturing our 10 Navy sailors. Now, I want you to think about that. Think about the fact that here we are, quote unquote, the greatest nation in the world, the greatest military, strongest military. And we have the Ayatollah Khamenei pinning medals on the chest of leaders who put 10 of our sailors on their knees at gunpoint. And consider the fact that the President of the United States of America and the Secretary of State, John Kerry, who was a former naval officer that also was a boat captain of a riverine assault craft during Vietnam, thanked the Iranians for treating our sailors so well. They're pinning medals on people that, quote unquote, captured our sailors. That's being played all over the world. And you ask, are we truly that respected power? You ask, are we truly that feared entity? And I think there's something important about speak softly and carrying a big stick. I think there's something important about having leadership that says, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall, and the wall comes down. I think it's something very important about your word being your bond and being trusted. I think it's very important that you have a deterrent. Sometimes bullies only understand one thing, that's getting hit in the mouth. But right now we're getting hit in the mouth. Our reputation is suffering. We relieved the sanctions on Iran, and President Hassan Rouhani went on his infamous European tour to Italy and to France. He secured almost some $17 billion in trade agreements from Italy, and then he landed in France and secured a contract with the Airbus from French President Hollande. Our own Boeing spent millions of dollars lobbying to get the sanctions relieved and got nothing. This will take us to the next caller. This is Bobby from Texas. Bobby, you're on with Colonel Allen West, Point of View Radio. Go, brother.
Good afternoon. I sit here and listen to your broadcast occasionally, and today it touched my heart. You speak of yourself as you've been in the military, and I understand years ago when I was a young man, I went in, and back then you had to take a physical and a written exam, and I passed those, and I was sworn in and took the oath of office, and I waited for the day that I would receive my orders to report for duty for training. It never came. I received a letter where I've been reclassified, even though I passed to a 4F, which meant that I wasn't acceptable for the military. I never found out why, but therefore I didn't go into it. But I still took the oath of office. And either way, I always believed in this country, and I believe in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and everything that man has done for this nation. And when I took that oath, it doesn't matter one way or another, I would defend this country with my life and the freedom that we have. That being said, I also believe that back when I was a young man, we were in school, and the first thing we would do we would have a prayer, a Bible reading, and the Pledge of Allegiance to that flag that bears so much. And we have gotten away from those traditional things, and I think that's one reason our nation has gone where it has. That we have taken away those basic training things that I was raised with, and I was taught in early life to respect and honor this country. And if we could get back to that, not only would families see a change, and not only will this nation see a change, but there will be a great change for the Lord God Almighty.
Well, I can't agree with you more, Bobby, and I want to thank you so much for your call. And, what Bobby was talking about is something that, we all have to realize. Back in 2008, someone said that we're 5 days away from fundamentally transforming America. You can go and see that moment on video. People cheered, people clapped. Now we know what a fundamental transformation really means. It's time to get back to the fundamentals that makes America great, the fundamentals that make us the longest-running constitutional republic that the world has ever known. It's been a pleasure and an honor to share this day with you. Colonel Alan West, the President and CEO of National Center for Policy Analysis. You can follow us at www.ncpa.org so you can become a better educated and informed citizen and not a subject. But I want to thank Point of View Radio for giving me this opportunity over the past 2 hours to share thoughts, perspectives, and insights and educate and inform you about how great an America we have and why we sing God Bless America, we don't sing Government Bless America. Take care. Bye-bye.
An extremely rare opportunity is about to pass you by. February 1st, this weekend, is the deadline to reserve your spot on a trip to the Holy Land and places from the book of Acts and Revelation with Kirby Anderson. Do yourself a huge favor. Even if you think there's no way, at least give it a look. 10 days in Israel, or 7 days in Greece, or see it all in 15 days. Click the Journey to Jerusalem banner at pointofview.net. Maybe, just maybe, it's time to realize you can do it this year. But you have to reserve your spot and make a deposit now by this weekend. Imagine yourself in Caesarea and Nazareth, where Jesus grew up, in Capernaum, on the Sea of Galilee, the Dead Sea, Masada, the Temple Mount, the Garden Tomb, then the thrill of Greece in the footsteps of Paul, Athens, Corinth, Berea, Thessalonica, Philippi. See the full schedule at pointofview.net. Come on, take that step. Pointofview.net. Pointofview.net. Journey to Jerusalem with Kirby Anderson and Point of View. Point of View is produced by Point of View Ministries.
I just thank God for y'all. I listen to you every day, truly. I wanted to thank y'all for everything you do each day to inform Christian families and our community about the things we can do, and just the way you're so informative. I listen to you daily.